2, 3. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hi everyone. My name is NURUL and AFIFI Bita Bracket.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is AININ SOFIYA and I am 19 years old.
And today we are excited to have a special guest joining us today, our dear friend Catherine William, all the way from America, to share her experience in dealing with intercultural communication conflict due to verbal and non-verbal communication.
Before we begin, let me give you a little background about Catherine. She works in the recruitment office at her university and is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree in biology and education. What makes her story truly captivating is her diverse cultural background. Although she's American, she spent her childhood in Senegal, which has deeply influenced her perspective on life and communication.
On top of that, Catherine also has traveled to Malaysia, where she had the chance to immerse herself in even more cultural diversity. While she has not formally studied intercultural communication, her personal experience connecting with people from various cultures make her a fantastic person to learn from.
So Catherine, thank you for being here with us today. To start off, could you tell us a bit more about yourself and how your background has influenced the way you approach communication?
All right. Tell you a little more about myself. I'm from the state of Alabama in the South of America. So that is a unique culture within America. The different regions of America are different. And so the South is a unique culture. It's usually more conservative politically and a lot more religious and Christian influences. And then, like y'all said, I did spend a lot of my childhood in Senegal in West Africa. And so that obviously has influenced me. I've seen different cultures and know that and have been able to experience that. I am 21 and I am studying biology and education, and I hope to be a high school biology teacher in my future. So that's my trajectory and my future plans so far.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your
information. All right, to start off, let's start with the big question. How do you define intercultural communication based on your words or your experience?
I think it's, well, I'm trying not to use the word communicate in it, but it's interacting with another culture, another type of person in some ways, and it's trying to find common ground, trying to bridge divides and gaps between cultures because we often misunderstand each other or don't like each other. And so it's intercultural communication is saying, okay, how can we figure out how to talk and understand each other, not just be talking, but to truly understand each other. And so I think that's what intercultural communication is. It's the ability to not just talk, but to communicate, understand each other.
So do you think that it is that intercultural communication is important and today know this in today?
Especially important, I think. In the past, there was a lot less communication and a chance for people from different cultures and countries to communicate, especially in the United States, since we're such a big country. But now the world has become so globalized, and there are exchange students all over the place. People get jobs in other countries all the time. And so all these different cultures are having to come in contact with each other. And so we really need to push that for intercultural communications, because otherwise these cultures could clash in bad ways rather than being able to benefit humanity. So
let's continue with the next question.
So we heard something interesting about American culture, where people really value being on time at workplace, sometimes even more than building personal relationship. Have you ever been in a situation where these two values clash, and how did you handle it well?
Well, I can think first off of a time when I was super busy and trying to be on time, and it actually made me, sorry, that was my timer. it made me have to say, hey, I got to go to work, bye. And I just left my friend and I felt kind of bad. But a time I've done it well, let me think. I think, I think I've done it well other times when I realized that, hey, I don't need to be perfectly on time. I can stop and talk with this person. I might feel like I'm in a rush, but there are times when I've had to tell myself, okay, just calm down. You don't have to be there right away. I can think of times when I was trying to go study with somebody or meet up with someone, and I was walking and had to say hi to someone else, and they started talking to me, and I was like, well, I don't really want to I want to be on time, but at the same time, I don't want to just act like this person's not worth my time. And so I've had to tell myself, calm down. You don't need to be on time all the time. So listen and be a good friend.
When you were in Malaysia,
Mhm.
is there any difference between your culture and Malaysian about being on time?
Definitely. The different cultural exchanges we did, we always set a time and tried to be there on time, but sometimes other students wouldn't show up on time or we didn't, and it was all okay. And I was like, wow, okay, it's pretty chill, it's relaxed. And so there are definitely times when I realized, okay, we do not have to start at 6 p.m. sharp. We can start at 6:10, 6:15, and it's better that way because it really helped us to build relationships first.
So you think that it is not like something about discipline or strict about it?
Can you broke up a little there?
Uh, do you think that it is about discipline or about culture?
I think it's about culture. Um, Definitely. Because, for example, my dad, he's from the United States and grew up where everyone tells you be on time, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess some of it is personality though, because he's late a lot of the times, even though he's from America. And so some of it's personality, but a lot of it's culture. Um, a lot of it is culture.
I think we can continue with the next question. In your culture, how do people typically use facial expression to show their emotion? Would you say that they are more expressive or are they a bit more subtle compared to other cultures you have encountered?
I think definitely we use our faces a lot, very expressive, but that sometimes means that we're not actually feeling what we're trying to show on our face. So sometimes, especially here in the South, like people call the South of the United States very hospitable, but they also sometimes will say, "Well, I don't know if they actually like me or they're just being polite." And so we are oftentimes very expressive with our facial expressions, but that sometimes means that we might be smiling even though we actually don't like that person. Um, and, we're not afraid to show our face when we don't like something sometimes as well. So I think we're more expressive, especially compared to, like, I have friends who um, grew up in European countries, and in those countries, you don't usually smile at random people. And they think it's weird to smile at random people. It's like you should only smile at your family. And so here in the United States, we smile at everyone, and we're like hi and all that. So definitely more expressive here.
So you said that you grew up in Senegal.
Yes.
Is there any different, how you use facial expression in America, in South
How I
America?
use how I use what?
How is there any difference between in Senegal or and in America that how you use facial expression?
Oh, um, I think there's a little bit like um, you don't usually smile as much in Senegal. I think from what I remember, you would definitely greet people, but not as much, not as expressive. And so you are being expressive, but not as expressive as I feel like I am here. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's more there. It's more about are you greeting them? Well, here in America, it's more about looking happy and being like, oh, hi, and then leaving. Well, in Senegal, less about how you look, but more about are you making sure you're actually saying hello, how are you, how's your family, how's your work, how's this, how's that. So I think it is a little different.
So you use more words than facial expression in Senegal.
Yes, I think so.
So I think we move on to the next question,
Mhm.
which is, when you were in Malaysia, did you notice anything different about how people use eye contact during conversation? And how did it compare to what you are used to before?
Yes, I definitely noticed it was different. I was told that I shouldn't make eye contact too much with, especially with elders, because that could be seen as rude. While in America, we our elders tell us you better look me in the eye and show you're paying attention. So in America, our parents are like, "Why aren't you looking at me?" And then I was told, "Okay, don't be staring people in the eye." In Malaysia, and so that was a little bit different because I've always been taught it's respectful to look at someone in the eye, while in Malaysia I was warned don't look too much in the eye, don't try to keep staring at them. And so that was a little hard for me at first to be like, okay, I'm gonna greet them and be polite, but I don't want to be rude and stare at them too much.
There is something that we actually learn. Is something new that about Malaysian that
Mm-hmm.
that not everyone can make eye contact, but in such situation like lecturer and student, we
Mm-hmm.
can make eye contact. Is it there is some is there any something similar to in America or in Senegal?
In Senegal, you're typically a woman shouldn't make too much eye contact with an older man, so someone who's in charge. But here in the U.S., usually, as like with the teacher or anyone in charge, they want you to respect them by making eye contact. So I think it's a little different even there. Um, in Senegal, usually you try to be keeping your head down and being polite that way.
Next question. Have you ever found it's hard to communicate with someone who talks or interact in a way that is different from yours? And how did you handle it?
Yes, I oftentimes find it can be hard, um, especially when they're not just talking different, like when it's an accent and I'm like, okay, I don't know what they're saying, but especially when it's different facial expressions or different ways of body expression, because then I'm like, I don't understand what they're um, meaning, or because sometimes, usually I can read people pretty well and be like, okay, they like me or they don't like me, or they're thinking this or they're thinking that. But if they have different facial expressions and body expressions, then I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. And so I think the way I deal with that is to just be honest and say, hey, like, what are you actually thinking? And really try to listen and use more words than try to assume what they're saying by their tone or by their facial expressions.
So, when you or do you think when someone else is having these difficulties, do you think that it is better for them to push themselves to go through that situation or step back from that situation?
Mm, I guess it depends on how stressful it is for them. Um, but so if it's too stressful and it's making them actually like have problems mentally, emotionally, I'd say step back. But if they genuinely need to learn it, like for example, if an exchange student came to the United States and was having trouble understanding American students and accents and expressions, I would say, okay, if you need to take a day, step back, but you need to keep on trying to learn. Otherwise, you will find that you can't communicate well. Um, so I guess my answer would be it's kind of nuanced. There are going to be times when they need to step back, but in general, I would try to push them to keep on experiencing this new culture and this new people.
Okay, so the next question is, have you ever had a situation where cultural differences caused a misunderstanding? What happened and how did you figure things out?
Let me think. Um, hmm. Um, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm trying to think. I can give an example that hasn't happened to me, but I know it could happen. And it's like in Senegal, if you're walking by someone's house around lunchtime or dinner time, they will, if they see you, they'll greet you. Like you have to greet each other. And then if they're eating, their society says basically that they have to invite you to eat with them. But society also says that technically speaking, you should say no. If they invite you once, you say no. Oh, thank you, but I'm good. They'll say, if they invite you a second time, you should still say no. But if they invite you a third time to eat with them, that means they actually want you to eat with them and they're not just being polite. And so we've had to, people warned my parents, okay, if someone invites you to eat with them, if they say it just one time, it doesn't mean they actually want you to eat with them, but they're just being polite because that's the way Senegalese are polite when they're eating dinner or lunch. And so they warned us, okay, don't accept it first. If they say it again, say no again. But if they say it a third time, then you can know they actually genuinely want you to eat with them. And so the way to deal with that is to, I guess, have people who know more about that culture warn you beforehand. I can't think of any time that that I've had to deal with a miscommunication and had to deal with it in the time. But that's an example of where if my family wasn't warned, hey, sometimes the Senegalese will invite you to eat with them, but they actually don't mean it, but they have to be polite, then you need to say no. Because otherwise we would have said, okay, and then eaten their food and they actually didn't want us there. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like how sometimes in America we say, hi, how are you? But we don't actually, it's just polite to say, hi, how are you? But like, no one really wants to know everything about how you're doing. And so in the same way, the Senegalese say, come eat with us, but they don't actually want you to eat with them unless they ask like 3 times.
When you were in Malaysia, when you invited some of our friends, including me, to have a lunch with you, and there's some of us that immediately say yes. Do you think how was your reaction that time?
In America, when we invite someone to eat lunch, we usually mean it. And so when y'all said yes, I was like, well, of course they said yes. I was excited and happy because that's pretty normal for me. If you invite someone, usually they'll say yes. I'm trying to think. So I was excited and like, yay, they actually want to eat lunch with us.
So next question. For example, if there's a disagreement at work or among friends in your culture, how is it usually handled? Are people more direct about it, or is it more of an indirect approach?
It can depend on the disagreement, but in general, I see that Americans especially tend to be more direct. We will be more willing to talk with the person and say, hey, what you're doing is annoying me, or what you're doing is making me mad. You need to stop, or we need to work this out. We don't usually let it just keep it hidden. Or if people do keep it hidden, they'll keep it hidden, but in a way that they're showing they're still mad at you. And so it's like they're direct, very direct in that way still. Like we're quick to show our emotions and say, hey, you're making me annoyed or mad or something, frustrated. We're not afraid usually to show our emotions, but sometimes we can be afraid to actually talk about it. So it's kind of funny.
So you just show your emotion through gesture and facial expression rather than talk about it.
Oftentimes, yes, but I think we still tend to, if it gets pretty bad, we will talk it out. But I don't know. It really depends on the person too.
So when you are talking to someone from a different cultural background, do you do anything specific to make the conversation smoother and easier for both of you to understand?
Sometimes when I realize like, for example, if they're speaking English, if we're both speaking English and I recognize that their English isn't as good as mine, I'll try to talk slower. Sometimes I forget to do that though. And then I realize, oh, I need to slow down. Because there are times when when I've tried to speak French with people and they talk so fast and I'm like, I don't know what they said. So I've learned from that to try to slow down, but I still forget to. I also try not to be, I try to keep a smile on my face and show that I'm friendly. I know some cultures find that odd. Like some people would say that doesn't seem genuine, but it's just what I do. So I'll try to slow down my talking if it's in English and I know their English is not good, or, and I especially try to just listen well to them to learn about their culture so I don't make mistakes or misunderstand them.
Thinking back of on all your interaction with people from other cultures, what do you think the biggest lesson that you have learned from it?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is humility, not being prideful about my own culture or my own ways of thinking. I've realized that other cultures and people think differently, and that's not bad. Mine's not better. Theirs isn't better, but we're equal. And so I think that's the biggest thing I've learned is humility, and that allows me to learn to listen well and to um, think well and to watch people rather than try to push my own ideas on them. I've learned to listen, to be humble.
When you came to Malaysia, like there's a bit. Is there any similarity in Malaysia culture that you can find in American culture?
Um, hmm. Similarities. I know I guess there are, in some ways I found that a lot of people around our age, like within college and that general age area, I've found that we all tend to be pretty outgoing and wanting to learn a lot about the world. And so I think in some ways we're similar in that way. Like our cultures are similar in that way, that age group. I'm trying to think. I think our cultures are similar in that we all want um, freedom and peace but we might want it in different ways, but we do want peace in our country. We do want our country to be a good country that's free. And so I think while Americans are sometimes, we do it differently, we all want that. So I think culturally we're similar in some ways like that.
So for the last question, how have your experience with intercultural communication helped you grow as a person, and how do you think these skills will benefit you in the future?
I kind of talked about it earlier, but I think it's helped me to learn to see each person as special and worth my time. They're valuable because I've seen that just because someone's different from me doesn't make them less valuable. It actually, they're just as valuable as me. And so I think all the experiences I've had have taught me to genuinely care for other people. And I think that's really going to help me in my future because a lot of communication starts from a heart that really does care for that person you're talking to and communicating with. If you don't care about that person, you're not going to really want to put the effort in to communicate and to understand, especially when there's language barriers and cultural barriers. If there's no love there but for you that you have for them, then you're not going to really care to communicate. And so all these experiences I've had, I think have taught me that I really should care for other humans because they're just like me. And so I think that's what I've learned.
Earlier, you said that intercultural communication is important. So, do you have any message for the younger generation about this?
Yeah, I think it's important because our world is becoming more and more cultures are becoming more and more integrated and getting to know each other better. And if there is not communication, there's going to be misunderstanding and hatred and fear. I think the opposite of communication is ignorance, and ignorance usually causes one type of person to fear the other and the other to hate the other, and that causes wars, that causes a lot of hatred and just problems in general. And so if we don't push ourselves and younger generations and all generations to communicate and to actually try to understand others, then there's going to be a lot of hatred and a lot of fear and war and strife and all problems.
All right. I think that's all for today. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing your experience with us, Catherine. Your insight have been truly inspiring, and we have learned a lot from this.
Yes, it's been a pleasure hearing your stories, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thanks again for such a great, thoughtful conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's been so fun, and